Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the November 8th orientation webinar as far as the new Senior Administrators Orientation Series. We're glad that everybody was able to join us this morning. I'm looking forward to our presentations on legislative processes and priorities by Alex Fagg, and also about our system marketing from Sharon Gladwell. I think you'll enjoy hearing from both of them, and I think it'll be insightful from both of them as well. I currently have the agenda on our screen, or the schedule, so that way you can be reminded of what's coming up next. Tomorrow we'll hear from distance education and credit for prior learning and business engagement. So I think it'll be another good webinar for everybody to listen to and participate in. I also want to mention to everyone that as you have questions, you may use the chat. However, to help us get to know each other a little better, we're encouraging people to either raise your hand or turn your video on, but definitely turn your video camera on and unmute your mic, so that way we get to look at each other. It'll just help us put some faces with names and to give you the ability as well to improve your network, especially with this group of new senior administrators. So we're glad that everybody was able to join us again this morning. I believe that Alex is going to go first. So Alex, I think you're able to share your screen. And while he's getting those things ready, Alex had joined us not too long ago, and I'm very glad that he is here with us. He's very insightful and knowledgeable and has a lot of experience with the General Assembly. And I think you'll find his presentation very helpful. If you have questions, again, please feel free to raise your hand or to put something in the chat, but we'd love to make this a verbal conversation and turning on your cameras when appropriate. So without further ado, Alex, I'll turn the mic over to you.
Thank you, JW. Again, as JW said, my name is Alex Fagg. I'm the Director of Government Relations here at the North Carolina Community College System Office. So I deal a lot with the members of the North Carolina General Assembly in regards to policy making, policy input, relationship building, amongst many other things. Our system team here works hard on behalf of the 58 colleges and our community college family, as President Stiff likes to mention. And I did work at the General Assembly before this job as well. So I was the one on the inside about a year ago. I was the one on the inside, and now I'm the one on the outside. So it's definitely been a change, but a change for the good. So, all right, I'm going to jump right into it. And I'm assuming everything's going well with my screen. I think I would have been told if not. So
yes, everything looks great, Alex.
Great. So the structure of the General Assembly, just kind of some high level for you all. It's a part-time legislature, believe it or not. They typically meet Monday nights through Thursday at noon. Members have other jobs other than being a legislator. Again, I know sometimes that's hard to believe with especially as we have seen with this very long session, but they are a part-time legislature. Both chambers, Senate and House, have each have policy committees and budget committees. Those are separate. So the House has their education policy and budget committee, two separate committees, and the Senate has their education and policy committee. So they kind of mirror each other in both chambers. Committee appointments are made when the session convenes. This long session started in January. So those appointments are made at the beginning of the long sessions, and those appointments are made based on feedback with members and their interest, and ultimately it falls to the decision of the leaders of each chamber who gets appointed to what committee, and I'll get into that in a little bit. So as I mentioned, long sessions are kind of the kickoff of the two-year budget season, as we call it, and they're the odd number years. And typically a long session runs from January to July, but as we've seen right now, they're still in the legislative long session. The short session is typically an adjustment year for the biennial budget. So the long session, they established a two-year biennial budget. And in the short session, they will come in and make adjustments to the second year of that budget. Legislative committees are staffed by both partisan and nonpartisan staff. The nonpartisan staff are really the ones that work for the North Carolina General Assembly. They're budget or the bill writers, fiscal research people, and they work on behalf of all 170 members. The partisan staff are really for the majority and the minority party to help them in their initiatives. So the House of Representatives is comprised of 120 members. They serve 2-year terms. And the Speaker of the House is the presiding officer, and he or she is elected by the majority party. Again, the Speaker of the House makes all committee appointments and taking into consideration specific legislators' interest. So the North Carolina Senate is comprised of 50 members. Again, they serve 2-year terms as well in North Carolina. It's a little different that the Lieutenant Governor is the presiding officer, who is a statewide official, and he or she only votes in a tie break. So the Lieutenant Governor would only vote in a tie break. Senator Phil Berger is the president pro tempore of the Senate, who really is the one that runs the Senate inside of the building. And like you saw with the House, the president pro tempore is elected by the majority of the senators and makes all committee appointments. Here are the 2 minority leaders in the House and the Senate. Representative Robert Reeves in the House is the Democrat leader, and Senator Dan Blue is the Senate Democrat leader. And very important to remember that every voice and support matter for our community college system. We want to stress that all 170 members are extremely important to our community college system. And actually, it's I will say that the community college system is the only entity that I've ever heard of that has all support from 170 members as it stands right now. Everyone you talk to always voices their support for our hardworking community college system. Here's our legislative maps for this session, and I will note that redistricting just occurred last week, so there are new legislative maps, House, Senate, and congressional. They have already been challenged, so there's a long way to go in those new maps. But here's the current maps of this current General Assembly, that the current delegation of the General Assembly is elected under. Important to know there is no veto-proof majorities, so compromise is very important and coming to that middle ground. There were very few key leadership changes, but there were 2 to note in this election cycle. One, the Senate Majority Leader Harry Brown, and 2 was Representative Darren Jackson, who was the Minority Leader in the House. So a few changes, but a couple of 2 key ones. So here's a brief overview of how bills are handled. When they're introduced, or their first reading is an introduction, which is really kind of procedural. After that, the bill is can be referred to a committee, and it begins its committee process. That bill would it receives serial referrals, which is basically the criteria that the bill tries to address. For example, if it has to deal with community colleges, it would be referred to an education committee. So the bill would therefore make it through their committee process, and all of that's up and subject to the committee chair. Once the bill hits every committee that it has been deemed that it needs to visit, it will then go to the floor of that specific chamber, where it would be voted on and for second and third reading. When a bill passes its third reading, it will then go to the crossover to the next chamber, the other chamber, and go through the exact same process. There's a lot more that happens behind the scenes, but that's the high level for kind of how bills move forward. And again, all of that's subject to committee chairs and to their discretion if a bill gets heard. If chambers are at odds on a bill, then you will see a conference committee appointed, which is good to note. The budgets in this was in this process right now. So there's a conference committee appointed by both Senate and House members who are involved in that specific legislation, that they come together and try to establish common ground to move forward and develop a conference report.
Hey,
There's
Alex,
a brief,
Alex,
yes,
looks like there's someone with their hand raised. Are we taking?
okay. If you wouldn't mind, let me finish this one slide, and then we'll hit a little breaking point, and I'll be happy to answer your question if that's okay. Well, this is the kind of high level of what I just explained. It's important to note that when a bill does pass the General Assembly, it does go to the governor, and the governor has the ability to sign a bill into action, veto a bill, or let the bill lay upon his table, his or her table. And after 10 days, the legislation can become law without the governor's official signature. And I believe we did have a question. I just wanted to get through that last slide right there, or we can wait until the end, JW, whichever one you think is best.
Well, I think this is a good pausing point. Thank you. And thank you, Sharon, for seeing the hand. I missed it. I apologize. I think Hyro, I think it was your hand that was raised. You had a question?
I just had a question about the maps, because I know you said that the current map, there's already some challenges to it. Has there ever been a time where maps weren't challenged? And then has there ever been, I guess, a time when they try to go have somebody from outside of North Carolina decide how the map should be drawn?
So I will admit I'm not the most expert on redistricting maps on the legal side of things. That's something when I was at the General Assembly, I kind of tried to stay away from and just let it, the cards play out. But I will say, since my time in this sphere over the past 6 years, that mostly every map that is drawn is challenged. And your second part of your question was anybody outside of the state that has drawn them? Was that?
Well, yeah, like help decide like how the map should be drawn, like to try to create a little bit of non-partisanship. Whereas, I feel like if we just do it within the state, it's always going to be, one side feels like they're not, getting a fair share. So I'm just wondering, has there ever been a discussion, or are there other states that do it the same way, or are there states that do it different?
Yes, sir. Unfortunately, I can't speak to that. I'm not sure if that's involved. I do know that there has been a strong push for public opinion, public map drawing. I'm not saying one way or another, but I know that there's been kind of a strong push for that transparency. So I do think that changes have been made over the past couple of years, but to the specific points of view that you're raising, I'm not 100% sure on that. Maybe one day I'll read more deep into it.
Hey, Alex, a kind of a similar question to that. That was a great question, Hyro. How does the districting and redistricting impact the colleges?
Great question. So when the census data is taken into account for this past decade, there are population shifts and population pocket changes, and those districts take into account those changes. So we would potentially see changes to legislative delegation who represent specific colleges. Again, due to those population shifts for those districts to change. Again, there's a lot of criteria behind being able to draw a district and population size inside that district. But yes, the new maps could result in changes for who runs in the next biennium, who files, and who would represent each of our 58 colleges. Some will stay the same, but some may change. All right. So let's get into the budget process, which has caused a lot of frustration. So developing our community college systems legislative agenda, it begins with the legislative and finance committees of the North Carolina or the President's Association. So they come together and really hash out with our system office team here, which is where we are right now, actually, for this upcoming next session. But the finance and legislative committees work together to develop that budget priority list, that legislative agenda, really in the initial phase. Then it goes before the full North Carolina President's Association to receive a vote of approval. And after that, it goes before our state board. Now, it's important to note that the Trustees Association is strongly involved in this. We get their, I guess practice has been to get their sign off on it, but they don't have to officially approve it. But we always, because we advocate with one voice. So we want to make sure that the Trustees Association is on board with the legislative priorities and legislative agenda. Because again, we're stronger as one rather than divided. So here's our current budget priorities. This was presented back in, I think it was February and March of this past year. But and I think a lot of you are very familiar with this legislative increase for salary increase for employees, stabilization funds to help our colleges during the pandemic, upgrading our modernization systems for IT, funding for cybersecurity positions. We saw major ransomware attacks, and this is in response to that to give us positions to help our colleges. Funding for a multi-campus center in Yadkin, and this hit the necessary thresholds for consideration and was approved by the board. Capital funding, and then 2 special provisions as well. And I will note that we've received a lot of great support for this, for our agenda. When I brought it forward, some individuals that were high up told me not every agency gets 100% of what they asked for, but we've come really very, very, very close. So I think that just speaks to all of the hard work that you all do along with our community college family. Like I said, our advocacy efforts, it's very important to stay unified in our message and what we are pushing for. We have a large reaching system. So if we're all speaking with one voice, then it can reach or be very, very impactful. And again, all 170 legislators here. We want all 170 to support our agenda, and the governor, so 171, but that's our goal. So key things to know about the budget process is, and I mentioned this, the president of the system presents our budget priorities before the Joint Education Appropriations Committee at the beginning of long session. After that, the House and the Senate leadership begin working through a spend target based on forecasts of revenue that is provided to them by the nonpartisan central staff. The governor brings forward his budget or his recommended budget during this time. That was at the end of March of this year. After that, everything really kickstarts. So this past biennium, the Senate started the budget process, and they worked through their version of the budget. Important to remember that everything is very strategic throughout this whole time. I know, they plan for, the Senate plans for compromising with the House, then the House brings forward their budget, plans for compromising with the Senate, and ultimately they're all preparing for compromising with the governor. So it's important to remember that nothing that one chamber brings forward is what you will see at the end. So leading up to this, throughout this entire time, we here at the system office and our community college family are advocating with education, appropriation subcommittees chairs, the policy committee chairs, the what's called the full budget or big budget chairs, amongst everybody else, again, 170 members. So one thing to note here is you'll see individual appropriation bills come out. A lot of the time that these come forward, members use it as a way to to help back in the district or promote themselves sometimes, and then or address a concern that a constituent had brought forward that the constituent or whoever they're interacting with would like to see a single file bill. But anyway, all these individual bills are usually captured and go into considered in the budget, because at the very end of the day, they want to ensure that they have a balanced budget. And I believe it's in our Constitution that they have to have a balanced budget. So they pass a bunch of individual spending bills. It can get a little, it might get a little off kilter. So they want to make sure they combine them all into what we see as the state budget. And all salaries and capital funding decisions are made at the full budget chair level. So that's not handled at the education policy level, but this one step, what would be above, which would be the full chair level. So here's the budget conference process, which we are kind of in right now. So the House and the Senate come together to find differences in between their two budgets. Again, they're strategically developing and crafting their budgets. They know the members that they're going to have to compromise with and what their priorities are, just like the other chamber knows what the other chamber's priorities are. So it's all a strategic process. So the subcommittees work through their area budgets, like the education subcommittee will work through the education budget, and then they report that up to the full appropriation budget chairs. There are some cases where subcommittees cannot come to an agreement, and that is then escalated and kicked up to the full appropriation chairs to find a compromise on. As I mentioned, the full appropriation budget chairs work through the statewide items such as salaries and capital funding. And they can also make adjustments to subcommittee budgets as well. That's important to note. And again, if items cannot be resolved at the subcommittee level, they go to the full chair level. If they can't be resolved at the full chair level, then they go to the pro tempore and the Speaker of the House. And it's up to the pro tempore and the Speaker of the House to ultimately come and find a compromise. Once the compromise budget has been agreed upon, it typically moves for a vote of approval in both chambers. So I will note the budget process is a little different this time. They're bringing the governor in for negotiations before moving forward with that final compromise vote. So it's a little different than what we have seen in the past, but still they're working through that compromise. As I mentioned, showing a consensus is key for legislators. They want to see that, and it speaks well to our community college system. And again, we have a large stretch here, a large umbrella, and all speaking with one voice is very important. Again, remember the budget process is long and strategic, and there are many, many steps. We have seen this long session is quite long. So I think we're all ready for it to hopefully widen down. Give thought and consideration when when messaging and communicating with legislators. That's very important. We're in a business or a relationship business, so it's very important to keep that in mind when we communicate. And remember, every voice and support matters. So where are we now? I briefly mentioned this, but the House and the Senate supposedly have come to an agreement on their compromise budget, and they're bringing in the governor right now, and have over the past, I think is almost 4 weeks now. And they're going back and forth with the governor, trying to find an agreement and a negotiation that all three, Senate, House, and governor can, can agree upon and let the budget become law. Still unknown when they might pass the biennial budget. I've heard it could be as early as next week. But again, we've seen throughout this process that timetables can be adjusted and pushed back. But again, during this entire time, advocacy efforts continue and never stop. So this speaks to our legislative relationships. It's key to our relationships with the General Assembly members is key to legislative success. We need support from both minority and majority parties. And it's another thing that's important when I speak with presidents and is the role that colleges can play back in the district. So a lot of people think of advocacy efforts here at Raleigh, but you never know the impact that, or you can't underestimate the impact of a legislator visiting a college, seeing our college work, talking to the staff on the ground. A lot of that speaks much. A lot of that speaks much better, and the advocacy adds to the advocacy efforts a lot better than what I can do sitting in their office in Raleigh. Them coming boots on the ground, seeing what the 58 offer is very, very important. And building on that, it shows members that what the college can do for them. We typically think about what can our legislative members do for us at the college and in our community college system family, but we can also help legislators in their areas because we know and we impact local districts. A lot of them don't know, quite frankly, what all we do for their local districts. So it's important to show them how we're benefiting North Carolina. We're helping the citizens of their local area. We're helping their businesses. We're helping their students. So never forget that how far that can go as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Alex. We appreciate that. Any questions for Alex? Guys are awful. Oh, no, go ahead, Ira.
Mr. Alex, do you have any, I know in that last slide you were talking about how important it is to build relationships with your local legislators. Do you have any examples or any tips you can provide on like ways to do that?
I'm unmuted already. Absolutely. I think just having the friendly conversations. My goal and what I kind of strive to do is having that relationship with members that I know that they're going to support the community college system. So when I talk with them, it's, hey, how are you doing? How's your family? How's your agriculture crops going? Or talk to them about their real lives there. Because again, there's a part-time General Assembly, so they have a second job, they have a family, they go back to their districts. So developing that real friendship and relationship with them, because if you have that most of the time they're going to support the community college system. So I think building that friendship with them and knowing that when their phone goes off and your name pops up, it's not that you're asking for something or something, you need something. It's just having that, hey, how are you doing today? I hope everything's going well. I hope, how's the ball game with your kid going, or something along those lines. And if again, that's the mindset that I use, because I know that if I have that and I do have those conversations, that I've done a good job building that relationship with that member. And, I say that, and I can always improve as well, which I try to, so.
And then one more question. You have, now I know you said, reaching out to those folks that support the community college. Do you keep like a naughty list of the people that don't, and like, so we can know? I'm joking.
Hey, I will say again, seriously, every member that I talk to loves what we do and loves who we serve. And that is not to be underestimated. That speaks to the work that our community college system has done and what you all have done, what our presidents have done, our trustees, our board. That's not to be taken lightly. I've never seen an agency where you sit down with a member and they're like, hey, I love the community college system. I love what y'all do. It's like, it makes, we don't have to play defense at the General Assembly. We get to develop and build those relationships and play offense, say, hey, here is our new document on capital. Here's our new, we don't have to worry about the defensive side of things. So, again, that speaks very highly to what you all do.
Any other questions or jokes for Alex? I do have one thing, Alex, that I'd like to bring up that you and I end up dealing with on several occasions. And that is somebody in your county or in one of your students gets a burr underneath their saddle. They're unhappy with something, and so they call their legislator. So Alex, you want to talk a little bit what that looks like when that kind of thing happens, because it is inevitable. It will happen.
So are you talking about somebody that would attend the college is not happy with something going on, the feedback that they get, so they call?
Yep.
So again, circling back to relationships and delivery and messaging, if that occurs where something happens at the college, I think we deal with it a lot, and a college makes a decision, a student or somebody is not happy with that decision, they decide to go to the North Carolina General Assembly representation who represents them. They will typically turn around and call our office and me, to which we therefore, let's use JW for an example, then I will talk with JW, and 99% of the time we'll end up circling right back to you all and kidding, because there's always two sides to the story, getting that information and then circling back up with that member. So it's really that relationship and threading the needle of those lines. However, the biggest thing that we do is try to treat everybody, we treat everybody with respect, regardless of where they are, or we don't even ask any personal questions or anything. We try to take in that information, ensure that their story is really taken to heart, and then we provide that feedback to the member, and ultimately the member usually likes for myself or somebody to correspond with that student. So that's typically when a constituent issue comes in, how it flows, but we always maintain the utmost respect for people that we serve here and try to help them the best that we can within the law and the guidelines that we have established.
Thank you, Alex. It's been very important over the years that I've been here that I can genuinely say that, hey, Alex, I know that Kimberly from COA, she knows about the student, and she's going to reach out and give that student an ear. Then that doesn't mean that you're going to say yes to the student, but you are going to give them an honest ear. And that goes a long ways. And I think the General Assembly trusts and knows that we care about students, and we're going to hear what they have to say. It's also very helpful when we can share your college policy. So we can say, okay, here's the policy, here's the next steps, here's the due process, or this is the local policy or the state board policy of why the student received an answer that maybe they didn't like. Any other questions for Alex before we move on to Sharon?
So I'll just want to thank you all again. You guys might have seen my name come through via that constituent request. So thank you for your really quick turnaround. I think I get a response back within hours or minutes. So thank you for your work there. Again, don't ever underestimate the impact that little things like that have. So just thank you.
All right, thank you, Alex. And so I think now we'll turn the mic over to Sharon Gladwell. We're glad to get Sharon almost a year ago now, I think, coming up on a year. And so Sharon's our guru extraordinaire of system level marketing. She usually works very closely with your local PIOs. You know that a marketing campaign started a couple of years ago, and that has been revamped for a newer marketing plan. And then I think she'll talk a little bit about that. Then she's also helping provide the toolkits that are helping with the long leave commitment and those type of things. So Sharon's involved in a lot of stuff. I really appreciate her expertise. And so Sharon, I'll turn the mic over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Kelly. And thank you so much for having me today. Welcome to each of you. I've been here since April, so coming up on a year, I guess, and it's been just a delight to be part of the community college system. I realize that I'm between you and lunch, and so I'm going to move through these slides, and there will be opportunity for questions as we go or at the end. I'm sharing my screen now, and I'm trying to advance my slides, and for some reason they're not Dr. Kelly, could you give me a cue if you're seeing my screen?
Yeah, we're seeing your title slide right now.
Okay, it is not advancing, so I don't know if it's an IT issue. I'm going to just pop out for a second.
Okay.
I'll try this again. All right. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, and try to advance one more time. There we go.
Yes.
It looks like they're, okay, great. I'm not sure what happened there. So as Dr. Kelly said, I will talk to you today about the marketing outreach. There's a lot that goes on in the marketing communications world for the system. And I just want to talk today about the two different campaigns that we have going on for our Great 58. There are two campaigns. One is Turnover, a New You, and the other is Your Higher Education. Two different campaigns, two different audiences, but very similar look. And we're just very excited because together the two campaigns provide $40 million to students to attend a community college. So I'll start with the Time for a New You campaign. This one's a little simpler to talk about, so I wanted to start here. This is a statewide campaign that launched in June 2021. There were several goals for the campaign. The first and foremost, we want to drive enrollment to our community college workforce programs. And there were 10 different GEAR-funded industry sectors that were targeted, anywhere from automotive to criminal justice to healthcare and IT. So again, there were 10 different GEAR-funded industry sectors that we targeted for this campaign. We wanted to use this campaign to remove perceived barriers to enrollment. And we wanted to create statewide awareness of opportunity to get skills needed to quickly change and launch careers for little to no cost. Again, just wanted to show that North Carolina Community College is a bridge to work and the economic recovery for our state. And the beautiful thing about this campaign is that it just dovetailed so nicely with our president's vision. President Stitt's vision is to provide accessible and affordable education, to be a national model for DE&I, and to be a leader in economic recovery. So just really nice that the campaign goals really aligned nicely with our president's vision. This campaign targeted an audience of underemployed and unemployed adults. As we know, the pandemic left us with some situations that we have to figure out. And one of those is the economic recovery. And unfortunately, people who lost their jobs or needed to reskill or retrain. The primary audience for this campaign was people 25 years to 44 years old. These were our prospective students. These are people who needed to quickly and affordably upskill with credentials for a new job with stability and upward mobility. So this campaign employed a digital ad against different platforms, from display over-the-top ads to social media, and promoted the scholarship opportunity. This campaign had a call to action. It was to drive prospective students to our website, and then from there to connect the students to a college, a community college, to help them get their enrollment underway. The campaign status is it was successful. So thanks to all of you, all the Great 58, all the collaborators and partners we've had on this campaign. We have just really hit a good mark, I think, with this campaign. The campaign ends at the end of November this month, but we're already seeing where a lot of schools have spent out their GEAR funds, and students have been awarded those funds. So that's just great news. We do have some marketing funds left, and I've been working with Dr. Gold and Nate Humphrey on this. So what we want to do is have a very careful and considerate, thoughtful way on how we spend these funds. Because a lot of the colleges have spent their funds, we may not want to go back and market in some of those areas, because if you don't have the funds to award, we don't want to send students thinking that they have funds to be awarded to them. So what we might end up doing is more general awareness kind of marketing. But we're working right now with our marketing vendor to figure out what some options could be and to finish out the little bit of funds that we still have for marketing in this campaign. So again, that was very successful, and we want to thank everybody for their help on that. The second campaign that we have going is the Longleaf Commitment Grant campaign. This one was the one that had $25 million to award. We learned going into the end of last semester that we had pandemic relief money available to award to students. And so we were really grateful for that. And we got busy to market it. The target audience for this campaign was the 2021 high school seniors. These were recent graduates and their parents. And there was eligibility criteria for awarding these grant funds. And so all of that was taken into consideration for this campaign. The campaign timeframe was June through September. We had a short, what we call flight for this campaign. And we leveraged search, social, programmatic, and YouTube advertising. And those were our very top performing tactics in previous campaigns. And I'll just pause there for a moment. This is the Your Higher Education campaign. And this campaign was designed a year or two ago, and it has built some momentum since it started. And so since we saw some great statewide presence with this campaign, and we had a short time frame to really market this Longleaf Commitment Program, we found it was best to keep that campaign going and build upon it. So we took the tactics that were very successful in the prior flights of this Your Higher Education campaign, and then implemented those for this flight that ran June through September and saw really good results. In addition to those tactics, we also added in direct mail and high impact web page takeovers. With that direct mail piece, we were really targeting those 2021 recent high school graduates. We were able to get some mailing information and be very sophisticated in all that we were doing with the marketing efforts. We also employed retargeting ads. What that is when someone, for instance, is playing, is served an ad, they may choose to click on that ad or they may choose not to. And again, our campaign was very sophisticated in who we targeted. And so we could tell if someone hadn't clicked an ad that we could actually serve that ad to them again. So we retargeted with those ads. And the call to action there was go to the website and find a college of choice, or go get started with enrollment by linking them to the FAFSA page. And for the first time with this flight, we used the sway of local influencers to reach both parents and students. And this was through our social media platforms. Our marketing agency had identified people that really would resonate well with our target audience, and we paid them to use their social platforms to promote the community college system. And that was important because these are people who already had a presence built on social media, and they were viewed as influencers with those target audiences. So we saw some really good activity there. On this next slide, it's really encouraging. Of all that we did through June through September, we saw 1.5 million 18-year-old high school graduates and their parents in North Carolina who watched our YouTube ads. These ads are the ones where if you're going to watch a YouTube video, sometimes you have to watch an ad before you see the content that you chose to watch. And we had short videos that were part of those ads or infomercials that you had to see. And so it's really encouraging. 1.5 million people saw these non-skippable YouTube ads. And this was by far our most effective tactic of all that we launched with this flight. And through all of our efforts, we served 15 million impressions, which drove over 107,000 visits to our website. Now, an impression is any time a person sees your ad. So when you look at all of the non-skippable YouTube ads, when you look at all of our social media ads, our over the top and banner display ads, all of that together came to 15 million impressions. So that's quite a great number for us, and I think we're very proud of that. Through all of this, we were able to bring a number of people to our website, and we encouraged over 5,700 people to click through and fill out the FAFSA, which is the first step, as you know, in enrolling for the Longleaf grants. Getting students and parents to click through was the ultimate goal for the campaign, which shows intent to enroll. And I'll just make a side note here. I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, but what we did find is that sometimes not all the paperwork was completed. So we could have had a few more students who enrolled had they finished some of the paperwork that was required. So there's an opportunity there to get more enrollment, we think. In addition to the advertising campaign, we developed both English and Spanish speaking toolkits for colleges, and we provided those to each of your colleges through the marketing communications teams. And we also provided them to educational partners who used our material through their own channels to help spread the word. So really great collaboration with this campaign. So here's the status of the campaign. So of that $25 million that we were provided through the governor's pandemic relief money, about $15 million of that has been awarded, which was to about 11,000 students. So there's still a good chunk of that money yet to award. We talked to the governor's office, and we have asked them, and they've approved it, for us to expand our target audience. So in addition to going for the 2021 high school graduates, we've now expanded that to include the 2020 high school graduates. So as of last week, we've launched another statewide marketing campaign, or flight of the existing campaign. We've tweaked all of our messaging, and we're now underway with the second flight of the campaign, again, broadening our outreach to the 2020 and 2021 high school graduates. Last week, we delivered another toolkit to all of the marketing communications teams at your colleges. And that toolkit included social media, it included flyers, included a number of materials. So your colleges now have material to get started to help market these funds. We have a fuller toolkit that's being developed, and we'll be providing that in the next week or two. But we do at least have the toolkit ready. We know that enrollment season sometimes has that peak window, and we are right in that peak time. So it's really important that we all use that toolkit and promote the Great 58. Again, we have about $10 million left to award. The funding for the marketing expires, or we have until December 31st to spend that money. So that's when our marketing will run, is through December 31st. Here's are just a few slides that I put together that show you some of the assets that we've provided in that toolkit. Here are some of the social media GIFs. These are animated GIFs that will appear on websites and social media. And to the right is a poster. We have a number of posters that were developed, and those are downloadable by the colleges to be printed and posted or shared electronically, however works best for you. This next slide shows another social media ad. Actually, the next few slides show ads. We're really trying to reach a number of people in North Carolina. And so we found actors and students to actually be part of the campaign to help us find ways to resonate with their target audience. So again, this campaign is underway now. And as part of it, we know that the ads the videos are very effective for us. So I've got one short video to play here. Dr. Kelly, I'm going to try to play it. Hopefully the audio will work. If not, maybe just give me a cue and I'll stop it early, but it's a very short video and you'll see some of the content that we're showing throughout the state through social media platforms.
2020 and 2021 high school grads can get up to $2,800 per year to cover all tuition costs at any North Carolina community college. college. That's a tuition-free degree with no strings attached. Find out if you're eligible for long leave commitment grant money now.
Great, so hopefully you heard that. That's just a short video. We have several of them that we've produced with the marketing agency, and those are available to your school. They're part of the toolkit, so those could be launched on your social media platforms as well.
2020.
And with that, that closes out my presentation. Again, 2 great campaigns, great collaboration around the state for our Great 58. And with the long leave commitment, that campaign's going to run through, our paid part of it's going to run through December 31st, but the toolkit can have longevity beyond that if your school needs it.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate that. We had a couple of questions/comments in the chat box, and for the benefit of people that might be on the phone or for the recording, I'll go ahead and read those quickly. One person noticed that the high school equivalency completers were eligible along with high school graduates. And yes, that is for this broadening effort. It was also true for the fall 21 new students as well. So we definitely were including the high school equivalency completers and the adult high school completers as a part of this program. And then I think the next part here is a question for you, Sharon, and that is a request to remember that the community college system is a comprehensive community college system, and there's the curriculum, college credit piece, there's the workforce continuing education piece, but there's also the adult high school and high school equivalency efforts. And they were wondering whether or not there was the possibility for that area to be mentioned in a future flight.
There possibly could be. We have a meeting. I have a meeting this afternoon with the marketing agency, so I can bring this up. And Dr. Kelly, if there's any information from you or Dr. Gold that we should include, let me know. I'd be happy to visit that with the agency.
Okay, thanks, Sharon. I
Sharon,
think that, I'm
JW
sorry,
Beck-
go ahead, please.
Yeah, JW Beck just intervene here. So we have talked to Sharon. She is aware of that, and we know that CCR certainly needs to have this kind of promotion. So just so you know, we've been in contact with this office, and we'll continue to give all the support we can to get our CCR involved in this, but also ask at your local colleges as well, about this, and let them know that they certainly are part of this marketing campaign.
Thank you, Gilda. I appreciate that. I was trying to find you on my participant list to see if you were with us this morning, so I'm glad you were here to share that expertise. Any other questions for Sharon?
Oh.
I have a question, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
It looks like these recent ad campaigns are primarily based on the cost of community college and money that's available to pay for community college. And that is a critical selling point for our colleges. But I think perhaps even more importantly, we need to be talking about the quality of education at our colleges and the opportunities that are provided by going to a community college and earning a degree and moving forward, and either moving straight to the workforce or transferring with requirements for freshman and sophomore years of college met. What are the plans in our marketing campaigns to also incorporate that focus on quality and opportunity?
Thank you so much for the question. With the ads, they were designed to be very quick attention getting, sort of attention grabber kind of ads, just promoting the opportunity for money being available for the higher education opportunities. We do have a press release that we're working on. I think the governor's office is thinking about a press release as well. And I think with these press releases, we have an even greater opportunity we're going to be coming into major media markets and pitching, making what we call pitches to TV, radio, newspapers about this program, and hopefully get some more in-depth stories. And that would include some interviews. And when we get into those interviews, we have more time to get people's attention than, let's say, those ads that kind of pop up and you hope you get someone's attention very quickly. But I think that you're absolutely right. We do need to talk more about the quality and all the different pathways and opportunities that we provide. So I think that we will build upon the momentum we have and really get into that space, or at least start to get into those tactics as we continue this current flight of the campaign.
Thank you, Christy. That was a great point and a great question. And Nate, I see your hands up.
Yes, and Christy, thank you so much for raising that. And I just wanted to piggyback for Sharon a little bit and say that, one of the great things that came with the federal dollars that we received were the supplemental dollars to get the communication out about that. And so those were really the backbones of the, at least I can speak for my, the GEAR scholarship, the first one, the workforce resiliency grants. Those were very much dollars that were available for communicating that opportunity out to students. But I think you raise an excellent point for dollars that might be a little less restricted going into the future of how do we start to communicate that value and where that is. So I hear that loud and clear, and we'll definitely, at least can speak for Workforce, right? That's definitely something that if we can identify those fund sources, trying to get that message out there for sure. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you, Nate, for that clarifying information. It's very helpful. Any other questions or comments?
I'll just add a comment. Thank you again for having me today. And it's been a pleasure working with all the schools. And it's been great working with Dr. Gold and her team. It's really nice to be able to come to a system and see this really good system approach on a great program. So again, thank you for having me today. And if I could be of help to you, contact me anytime.
All right. Thank you, Sharon. Appreciate your presentation. And Alex, we appreciate your presentation as well. My fellow AVP colleagues, any closing comments from you before we bring things to an end?
I would just say appreciation to our speakers today for sure. I would echo JW on that.
All right, thanks, Nate. Anyone else?
No, thank you so much, Sharon and Alex. That was fabulous. We learned so much, and we do appreciate everything that you're doing for us. And we I just want to remind everybody, please, Sharon does a great job of getting this out, but now it has to trickle down to the right programs at your college. And so reach out if you haven't heard about the marketing campaign for CCR students, or the fact that you are certainly part of it, reach out to your marketing director. I don't know what it's called, what that title would be called at your college, but please reach out to them.
Right, excellent.
Lisa, just wanted to thank everyone for your time today. Good to see you.
All right, thanks, Lisa. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate the conversation today. It was nice having some good questions. We appreciate you guys doing that for us. And as a reminder, our session tomorrow is at 10 o'clock, and will be the Zoom link should be in your invitation. So you guys have a wonderful day, and I hope this is a great beginning of your work week. Goodbye, everybody.